The Puppet Showman by Hans Christian Andersen. Narrated by BC Voiceworks. On board the steamer, there was an oldish-looking man with such a contented face that unless you are mistaken, he must surely be the happiest being on earth. And that's just what he said he was. He told me himself. He was a Dane, a countryman of mine, and a traveling theater manager. He had his entire company with him in a large box. He was a puppet showman. His natural cheerfulness, he said, had been put to the test by a Bachelor of Science, and through this experiment, he had become completely happy. I didn't understand him to begin with, but presently he came out with the whole story, and here it is.
It happened in the town of Slagis, he said. I was giving a performance at the coaching inn there and had a splendid audience. All of them quite young, except for a couple of old ladies. But then a fellow in a dark suit who looked as if he might have been a university student came in and sat down. He always laughed in the right place and always clapped correctly. He was quite an unusual playgoer. I was curious to know who he was. And then they tell me he's a Bachelor of Arts sent out by the Scientific Institute in Copenhagen to instruct people in the provinces. By 8 o'clock, my show was over. Children must of course go to bed early, and the convenience of the public must be borne in mind. At 9 o'clock, the Bachelor of Arts began his lecture and experiments, and this time it was my turn to listen to him. It was extraordinary what he had to tell us and to set before our eyes. Most of it went over my head and into the parsons, as the saying is. But I couldn't help thinking, if mankind can discover so much, surely we must be able to last out longer than we do before being put underground. They were positive small miracles that he showed us, yet it was all done as easily as kiss your hand, straight from nature. In the time of Moses and the prophets, a young man like this would have become one of the country's wise men. And in the Middle Ages, he would have been burnt at the stake. I lay awake all night, but when on the following evening I gave another performance and the Bachelor of Arts was there again, I was soon in high spirits. I was once told by an actor, when playing the part of a lover, he used to fix his thoughts on a single one of his audience. For her he played, and forgot all the rest of the house. The Bachelor of Arts was my one spectator for whom I performed. When the show was over, all the puppets were called before the curtain, and then I was invited by the Bachelor of Arts to come in and have a glass of wine. He spoke about my plays, and I spoke about his science. I fancy that they both gave us equal enjoyment, though really, I got the best of it. There was so much in what he did that he himself couldn't explain, as for instance, that a bit of iron that is put through a coil becomes magnetized. Well, what is the explanation? The spirit comes over it, but where does it come from? It seems to me, just as it is with people of this world, God sends them hurtling through the coil of time. The spirit comes over them, and there you have a Napoleon, a Luther, or someone like that. The whole world is a series of miracles, said the Bachelor of Arts, but we are so accustomed to them that we take them as a matter of course. And he went on talking and explaining, till at last he seemed to be prizing open my brain, and I frankly admitted that. If I weren't such an old un, I'd go at once to his scientific institute and learn to examine the world most carefully, even although I was one of the happiest creatures. One of its happiest, he repeated, as if rolling it around on his tongue. Are you happy? He asked. Yes, I said, and I'm welcomed in every town in which I bring my puppets. Still, it's true, there's one wish that sometimes comes over me and haunts my good humor like a nightmare. I should like to have a real live troupe, to be manager of a genuine company of men and women. I see. You want your puppets brought to life, he said. You want them to be turned into real live actors, and yourself to be their manager. Then you would be completely happy, you think? Well, he didn't think so, but I did. and we argued it backwards and forwards, and at the end of it we were no nearer to agreeing. Still, we clinked our glasses, and the wine was excellent. Though there must have been some magic in it. Otherwise, the whole thing would simply mean that I got drunk. But I didn't. My eye was perfectly clear. There was a kind of sunshine in the room, beaming out of the face of the Bachelor of Arts. He made me think of the ancient gods in their eternal youth, when they still went about on this earth. I told him so, and he smiled, and I could have sworn he was a god in disguise or one of their kinsmen. And he was, too. For the dream of my life was to be realized. My puppets were to come alive, and I was to be manager of a living company. We drank to the success of this, and he packed all my puppets into a wooden box, which he tied on my back, and then he sent me hurtling through a coil. I can still hear how I crashed, and there I was, lying on the floor. It's as true, and the whole company jumped out of the box. The spirit had come over them all. The puppets had become splendid artists. They said so themselves, and I was their manager. Everything was ready for the first performance. The whole company wanted to speak to me, and so did the audience. The lady dancer said that if she didn't stand on one leg, the house would come down. She was the leading spirit of the whole show, and wished to be treated as such. The puppet who played the Empress wanted to be treated as the Empress off the stage as well, or else she'd get out of practice. The man who had to come on with a letter did it with all the assurance of a #1 lover. For the small and the great, he added, are of equal importance when looked at as an artistic whole. Then the hero insisted that his part should have nothing but exit lines, because they always got a clap. The leading lady would only play under pink lights as they suited her. No blue lights for her. They were like flies in a bottle, with me in the middle of the bottle, for I was manager. I could scarcely breathe. My head went round. I was just as miserable as anyone could be. It was a new type of humanity I had around me. I did so wish I had them all in the box again, and that I'd never become their manager. I'd told them straight out that, when you came to think of it, they were really only puppets. And so then, they killed me. I was lying on my bed in my room. How I reached there from the Bachelor of Arts, well, perhaps he knows, because I don't. The moon shone through on the floor, where the puppet box lay overturned, and the puppets thrown all over the place. Big ones and little ones, the whole gang of them. I lost no time. I jumped out of bed and bundled them into their box, some on their heads, some on their feet. I slammed down the lid and sat on top of the box. What a picture to paint. Can you see it? I can. Now you've got to stay there, I said, and never again shall I want to see you as flesh and blood. I was in high spirits. I was the happiest of mankind. The Bachelor of Arts had put my cheerfulness to the test, and there I sat in utter bliss and fell asleep on the box. In the morning, I was still sitting there, happy because I had learned that my one great wish of former days had been a foolish one. I asked after the Bachelor of Arts, but he had gone like the old Greek and Roman gods. And from that time, I've been the happiest man alive. I'm a happy manager. My company don't argue, nor my audience either. They enjoy themselves at the top of their bent. I'm free to concoct my pieces just as I like. I pick out what I think is the best part of any play, and nobody minds. Pieces that the big theaters have no use for nowadays, but 30 years ago, the public crowded to and cried over. These I now take up and give to the children, and the children cry, just as Daddy and Mummy used to. Only I shorten the pieces because the little ones don't care for a lot of rubbishy love-making. Sad, but soon over is what they prefer. By this time, I've been all over Denmark, up and down, this way and that. I know and am known by everyone. Now I'm off to Sweden, and if all goes well and I earn good money, I shall become Scandinavian, but not otherwise. I can say that to you as you are a countryman of mine.
And being a countryman of his, I have naturally told the story all over again, just for the pleasure of telling it. This has been The Puppet Showman by Hans Christian Andersen, narrated by BC Voiceworks. Please like, share, and subscribe. Good night.